welcome to this doodle-ful lesson on different segmentation methods. I am Anna Slavina, and I appreciate you tuning in. So an overview of this lesson. Today I'd like to talk to you about different methods of segmenting markets, be it by audience or customer or user or human being, however you like to refer to the people who are benefiting from your goods and services. So there's a few different approaches, and I'm only going to cover the 4 that I have listed here, and broadly speaking, the questions that they might be useful to answer. So market segmentation might help you answer, who are these people? Experience lifecycle might help you answer, what are they doing? Mental models could give you a glimpse into why are they doing that? And capability level could help you figure out, how do we make this easier for them? When you're asking these questions, you do not have to use interrobangs. You can just use question marks, but I find it a lot more exciting to put that exclamation point after the question mark, because then it makes the question seem exciting and important and urgent. Yay! Okay, getting right into it, we're going to first talk about market segmentation, which is frequently used to group customers together based on shared characteristics, which tend to translate into shared needs. You can think of it as the people who use different products or services, or the situations in which different products or services are required. The example I'm going to use for the duration of this lesson has to do with Mexican food and a hypothetical company that sells tacos, burritos, and enchiladas. A company that segments their market by product might divide their customers into those who prefer tacos, those who purchase burritos, and those who purchase enchiladas. The key to segmentation by product is that the people in each segment should have more in common with each other, such as an undying devotion to their preferred meal, than they do with people in other segments. The commonalities shared within each segment are assumed to reflect shared needs. That's sort of how that relationship works. For example, the shared need for tacos. And they're also assumed to be different enough from each other where your taco enthusiasts are different from your burrito connoisseurs. All right. So one way of segmenting customers is through behavioral data. This could be the number of clicks on a particular link, for example, those who click on a taco button, relevant feedback on social media posts or other forums where the company or its products are discussed, or the number of purchases made. Someone could let you know that they like tacos by engaging with taco-related content on your platform, or on the internet if you use third-party cookies to follow people around. And you can start building a profile for those who seem to like tacos that includes whatever information might be relevant, such as time of day they're likely to click, and what other pages they're likely to visit. The idea is to try to get to know what the taco enthusiasts are interested in, so you can entice them to buy your tacos. Similarly, looking for mentions of burritos on social media might give you a sense of what might bring more burrito buyers into your business. Behavioral segmentation is useful for ad targeting and figuring out what might motivate people to purchase particular products. Another way of segmenting a market is by occasion. Rather than grouping people together based on how they seem to behave, occasional segmentation groups by event. So presumably all of the people who are purchasing your products, if you are a food vendor, share the characteristic of being hungry and or having some desire for food. But you could segment that further with different events. So maybe your business includes catering, and you want to figure out what sort of catering options you could offer. A road race that puts out a table full of food after the finish line might have different requirements than a family gathering or a sit-down celebration. By figuring out what sort of events you might be able to cater and segmenting your offerings to meet the needs for each type of event, you can make sure that your ravenous runners aren't ruining race roads by making a mess with enchiladas, while your sitting celebrators can easily share their meals. The last type of market segmentation I want to talk about is demographic. Others that I won't get into include psychographic, geographic, and cultural. When you are segmenting your customers by behavior, you are focusing on what they are doing. When you are segmenting by occasion, you are focusing on particular events or what's going on. When you are segmenting by demographics, you are focusing on who your customers are. Demographics could be any characteristic that can be used to describe a person or group, such as socioeconomic status, family status, age, race, gender, disability, sexual orientation, education level, income, etc. People in different demographic categories are likely to have different needs, and figuring out what those needs are can help to make sure that nobody is left out and anyone who loves tacos is welcome. Methods that can help with market segmentation include behavioral analytics, such as browsing and purchasing behaviors. Content analysis can help gauge attitudes, and the analysis of existing data as well as feedback could help with occasional segmentation. For example, what do people talk about when they talk about post-race feasting or catered dinners? Demographic segmentation requires collecting more information than you might otherwise collect through a purchasing form. If you have people sign up for your service, you can ask them for demographic information. You can probably purchase said information from a third-party data broker, or you can ask your customers to share demographic information with you through a survey. A goal of market segmentation is to figure out who all is interested in and/or could benefit from your products or services so you can meet their needs, whether those needs have to do with their identities and social contexts, needs that come up during certain occasions, such as the occasion of having run 5K and being hungry, and needs that are being reflected in behaviors, such as clicking on taco buttons or taco burritos in internet forums. Next, we're going to talk about another form of segmentation that doesn't segment people, but rather segments a process. Experience lifecycle segmentation is useful if you want to develop an understanding for the journeys that people go on with your product or service. Think about it like the process of consuming a burrito. There's a separate purchasing journey that your customer must complete before starting on their consumption journey. And that's really the first thing you should think about when conceptualizing your experience lifecycle. What is the overall journey that someone must go on to get from being a potential customer who has more money than burritos to being a satisfied customer who has a belly full of burrito? From there, you can group different stages of the journey that could occur at different points in time. The purchase of the burrito could happen immediately before the consumption of that burrito, or it could happen hours or days in advance. Let's say that the beginning of the burrito eating journey happens after the burrito purchasing journey concludes. The beginning of the journey might find an enthusiastic customer ready to dive into a delicious foil-wrapped meal. At this point in the journey, it may help to suggest to the customer how they may go about unwrapping the burrito. And for a novice customer, who we'll talk about more in a couple of slides, some suggestions of where to start the eating process may be helpful as well. Like, do you eat it lengthwise or widthwise? Where do you take that first bite? How do you unwrap it? That sort of thing. Once the eating experience has started and multiple bites have been taken, the next stage of the experience begins, which may bring up different needs and opportunities from the first stage. The middle of the burrito may be messy. And depending on the approach taken to eating the burrito, length or width-wise, as well as the contents of the burrito and the structural integrity of the tortilla, there might be different needs for support during that part of the process. That is, the middle of the process might pose some issues that create opportunities for assistance or intervention. Maybe you offer more napkins or a means of picking up little bits of deliciousness that have fallen out. The end of the process may be an important opportunity for winning return customers by treating them well even after they've purchased and consumed a meal. The ordering process may have been super easy and accessible. The meal may have been delicious, but it's also important to consider what happens at the end of the experience, which is more likely to be remembered just because we tend to remember events better that are more recent. Did you make it easy for the customer to tidy up and dispose of their garbage? Was it easy to pack the leftover burrito bits to take them home? Each part of the customer experience could be considered in terms of what opportunities there are to stand out from other companies offering similar products or services. Build loyalty so that customers choose to return to your business, and make it easier for them to talk about what made their experiences so awesome, such as, while I was in the middle of eating my burrito, I realized that I forgot to grab a napkin, but a friendly Roomba with a coat rack attached to it rolled right up to me, and I was able to easily grab a napkin and save my t-shirt. Yay! That's the kind of glowing review that you would get for giving someone a very positive experience that maybe they didn't expect. Now, how do you figure out what journeys your customers go on and what opportunities each stage of a journey presents? Well, I'm glad I asked, because that's on my next slide. There are a few different research methods that could be helpful here. The purpose of this research is to figure out what the typical customer does as part of a typical process, and then discover what issues may arise at each stage and what opportunities there may be to make the process better. To that end, you might want to conduct some interviews, especially if it's a relatively new process or not one that has already been interrogated or dissected. Interviews to uncover how customers go through processes could focus on pain points, challenges, or unanswered questions, as well as unmet needs, ideal scenarios, and opportunities for improvement. One of the challenges of using interviews for this type of segmentation is that you'll want to get a representative sample of people who go through the same process, but may have different needs, identities, or ideas for how the process should work. We'll talk more about different ways that people think about processes once we're done talking about experience lifecycle segmentation. If you want to get a sense of how people go through a process without risking the possibility that they don't remember or have a distorted perspective on it based on their mood, you might want to try observational studies, wherein you just watch people go through the process, or observe them some other way, and figure out what they do at each step. You can do this without interfering, or you can do a moderated study in which you ask your participant questions throughout the process to make sure you are interpreting their actions in the way that they intended. If you want to figure out whether everyone who goes through a particular process goes through it the same way, or if different people take different approaches, you can conduct a survey that lays out the steps in the process and asks participants to figure out a sequence that makes sense, or what might be missing or could be added to make it better. Finally, if you want to diagnose existing needs or issues that have come up in relation to a process, you can explore behavioral data and collect feedback at different stages throughout the journey. The overarching goal here is to segment an experience and figure out how that experience can be improved. Useful artifacts that come out of this process include journey maps and delineations of segments that could then be paired with relevant feedback or behavioral data. Companies seem to do a fair bit of experience life cycle segmentation as part of the UX process, and it often shows up in the form of journey maps. This process could be combined with market segmentation or one of the other segmentation methods I'm going to cover to build a roadmap for understanding how different people navigate different processes and what needs are likely to come up at each step. I briefly mentioned considering what your customers might think about the process or how they might conceptualize the steps. Next, we're going to talk about how those insights could be used to segment customers through mental models. As an employee of your company, you may develop a very thorough understanding of all of your products and processes, or at least some of your products and processes. But it's probably safe to assume that your customers have not developed the same exact understanding that you did, because they are different people who have different experiences and different ways of conceptualizing products and processes. This is where mental models come in. When you segment by mental model, you develop an understanding of which tasks people might group together, what context they might need your products or services in, and how they make sense of your processes and services. For instance, you might have a customer who enjoys tacos as a meal to eat during work, who may look forward to taking a long walk while munching on a burrito, and who might view enchiladas as a special sit-down meal to be shared with a romantic partner. If a lot of people overlap in their mental models, you can cater to their needs by offering Wi-Fi with your tacos, making your burritos perfect for eating on the go, and adding ambiance to your enchiladas. To develop an understanding of what sort of mental models people have for your products and or processes, you might conduct some interviews that ask people about contexts and associations. Or you might do some observational studies that follow people throughout processes and collect sequences of events or behaviors. You can try this segmentation method out yourself next time you're craving a taco or burrito or enchilada. Just ask yourself, what were the circumstances that brought on this craving? Are you about to embark on a walk and wishing you had the company of a warm tortilla stuffed with life-affirming deliciousness? Is it 2 a.m. and you heard the siren bells of tacos? Taco Bell really leaned into being a food of choice for THC enthusiasts and provides a great example of the utility of mental models. This brings us to the last segmentation method I want to talk about, which involves segmentation by capability levels. Different people arrive at your product or service with different experiences, knowledge, and capabilities. In order to make sure that they have a positive experience wherever they are starting from, you may wish to segment your customers by capability level. Take, for instance, a novice customer who may be completely new to your product or service. Maybe you are selling food to a precocious 2-year-old who isn't super picky about what flavors go into their foods, but needs a lot of help with the process of eating them. For this person, it may be overwhelming to offer 4 different types of tortillas, 5 different proteins, etc. And they might just be content to order a taco with whatever you decide to put in there. They might, however, need some assistance in breaking up the meal into manageable chunks and managing the mess. An expert, however, will likely not need as much assistance figuring out the logistics of consuming the meal, but they'll likely have developed preferences for customizations. They might have a preference for the type of tortilla used as a taco shell, the type of protein, heat level, and other contents. For this type of customer, you might not want to bombard them with hints for how to proceed as a newbie, but they might expect advanced customization options or look for more complexity. Segmentation by capability level might get a little tricky because someone who is an expert in burritos may be new to tacos, and the type of experience they might find most beneficial might vary between products and services. And ideally, your product and or service is already accessible to people with a wide range of disabilities, but that might be another way of looking at segmentation by capability. One way to gauge how people with different levels of experience navigate a process is by analyzing feedback and support tickets. If people are asking for support on a process they're unfamiliar with, they might benefit from including that support as an option for them. Behavioral data and analytics might also help with segmentation by capability level, especially if you already have a sense of how much experience someone has with your product, service, or platform. A long-term user who has spent a lot of time on the platform could be expected to have developed some expertise, while a new user who is just starting out on the platform could be assumed to be a relative novice. If you have a sense of who your novices and experts are, you can do a usability test to figure out what steps both sets of users approach in the same way and where they might differ in expectations and needs. To put everything together and oversimplify a bit, using different segmentation methodologies allows you to figure out who your customers are, which can help you cater to their needs and find new customers, what their journey is like through your process or with your product, which can help you discover needs and opportunities for improvement, why they choose a particular product or go through a particular process in the way that they do, which can help you make sense of what tasks and features people might group together, and what other contexts your products and services might fit that you aren't already addressing, and how they approach your product or service in terms of what experiences they bring to the table, which can help you figure out how to tailor your experience based on the capabilities of your customers so that novices are getting the experience they need and experts are getting an experience that works for them. Well, thank you very much for getting this far with me. That is a wrap for this lesson on segmentation.